Hello, this is Dr. Sangeeta Patty, and I'm very excited today to be here to talk about a proven program to restore optimal health to your children. The long-living cultures where the people do not degenerate until after 80 years does really offer us the best window into how to restore the vitality that was once the right of every child. An average American typically starts aging at 35 and is facing chronic illness by their late 50s or 60s. We have 3 generations of compromise in the purity of the air, of the water, of the food, of the environment. Over the past 15 years, I've practiced regenerative medicine at our institution. And over the last 5 years, we are seeing an epidemic of parents bringing in their children with ADD, colitis, ADHD, depression, anxiety, allergies, and most of all, being tired. It's an epidemic. Really? What's going on? What do we need to do to fulfill our duty to the generations to come after us? In this presentation, I will share a framework and concrete protocols that we've used successfully in our institution in restoring full vitality to the young by empowering parents and children to optimize their nutrition. And optimize doesn't mean being within the normal range of the 10th to the 90th percentile, but it actually means that we are in an optimal range of 75th percentile and above, where we get DNA repair, organ protection, brain, bone, heart protection, immune system protection. So an optimal range is really in the upper 75th percentile of the normal range. When we work on a model to empower parents and children, we work to optimize the nutrition, to optimize the detoxification, the hormones, the state of the mind, and the state of the body. This 5-point model has been used in the institution for over 15 years and thousands of patients to reverse diseases and also to achieve optimal regeneration. A lot of us have entered this field through the idea of anti-aging, but I really consider this to be living better at any age, because the mechanisms that one uses really are no different than the mechanisms that one uses to just restore optimal vitality and optimal regenerative ability in the body, which is through the model that I mentioned a little bit ago, which is to optimize the nutrition, remedy the earth, the soil, the plants, optimize the hormones, get into the sun, detoxification, water, probiotics, correct the mind stress, simplify life, downshift, and correct the body stress. This is the system that we use whether somebody comes in at age 70 with Parkinson's and Alzheimer's or advanced cancer, or whether they come in as a young child with some of the conditions that we're seeing an epidemic of, like ADHD, colitis, and such. I have a real love in my heart for empowering children to be healthy, because that is where our future lies. But what are we seeing right now? We are seeing an epidemic of anxiety and depression in the modern adolescent. Teachers who come to our practice as patients tell us that their classrooms have gone from less than 5% of the children being on medications to more than 30% of the children being on medications. This approach in our medical system of using pharmacy and surgery has us at a point where we're spending more than any other country on our healthcare, and yet we're ranked 26th in terms of our state of our health. How sick really are our children? Childhood cancer is on the rise. 11% of American children are now diagnosed with ADHD, and a good more percentage might not be diagnosed with ADHD, but actually would qualify if they were taken for diagnosis. And we can see that the brain scans of children with ADHD is quite a bit different than a normal brain. And of course, it makes sense that most children with ADHD also have other disorders, because the underlying cause of ADHD affects other things. So these things include other mental, emotional, or behavioral disorders, anxiety, depression, autism, and even Tourette's. When scanned in studies, over 50% of youth actually meet criteria for a mental health disorder. And this was a study published in the Journal of American Childhood and Adolescent Psychiatry. The prevalence of severe impairment among those that were surveyed is over 20%. This is astounding. This is an astounding number. In Los Angeles, a study was done last year that showed a 20-fold increase in suicidal behavior in 5 years. They actually noted 5,000 incidents, which was up from 255 suicidal incidents. What's happening? What's happening to our children? This alarming statistic of 1 in 5 children having a mental health problem, a 43% increase in ADHD, an increase in teenage depression, and 100% increase in suicide rates in children. There has been a 4-fold increase in ADHD medications over the last 12 years. And what we have to ask ourselves as a society is, does anybody really have a fluoxetine deficiency? Does anybody have a deficiency in an SSRI? Is it possible? Or have we ignored the root cause that's causing the depression, the anxiety, the ADHD? A perfect example of ignoring the root cause would be fatigue, which is the #1 complaint in the United States. The #1 solution in the United States happens to be energy drinks, which have become the #1 growing drink in the United States. If you look at the world solution for this tiredness, the world naps. Harvard Medical School in 2003 actually published studies showing that naps in the afternoon improve memory and problem solving and creative thinking and focus and performance and learning. Do you remember nap time in school? This was an automatic part of our schools, and it turns out that there's many schools around the world which actually have a little afternoon nap time. It turns out that the body's biological sleep cycle is not sleeping 1 time in 24 hours at night, but sleeping twice, once at night and once in the middle of the afternoon for 90 minutes. So what do we need to do to regenerate, restore, and find the root cause? We have to have the return of common sense, because what's happening now is, of course, we know that our medical system is broken. In fact, it's so broken that all the patients I see have already been pursuing all kinds of common sense root cause solutions, which I call the ancient future because we're returning to the past practices. And if you look at what medicine was actually founded on, it was founded on intuitive principles. First, do no harm. Trust the power of nature. Treat the cause. Treat the whole person. Tolle totem. Prevention is the best cure. And I think most important is to view yourself as a physician, is to be a teacher and to teach and empower your student to achieve regeneration, which does not necessarily need you in the picture. And that is actually exactly what we aim to do in our institution. Because we know that underlying imbalances cause symptoms like weight gain, like sleepless nights, like tiredness, like anxiety, and subsequently those imbalances also cause diseases of the muscles, the bones, the nerves, the organs, and the circulatory system. So a restorative approach refers to restoring optimal function to your cells and organs so that they do what they're supposed to do, keep you healthy, happy, energetic, and free of disease. So we look at the root cause of fatigue, which is not an energy drink deficit, but would be related to imbalances in 5 areas that you see here. The fuel tank, which I refer to as hormones and nutrition, being full above 75th percentile, detoxification working in the upper quartile, and the reduction of mind and body stresses by simplifying life and oxygenating. Using this system, we have had over an 85% resolution in over 10,000 patients of all of the conditions you see here. These patients started off as patients who initially entered the practice in their 40s, 50s, and 60s, and now includes patients that are all the way from infant to 90. And this is because people realize that a restorative approach applies to people at any age. 10% of our population and patients are now children, anywhere from the age of 2 months to the age of 18. And 90% of them under this system discontinue antidepressants, anti-anxiolytics, ADHD medications, and sleep aids. How does the 5-point model that I showed you for restoration approximate the conditions of the long living? This is a very, very important point because what we realized after utilizing the 5-point model system is that it very much did approximate the long living cultures where people don't degenerate and face chronic illness until their 80s, and they're climbing mountains until above the age of 100. They live and subsist on less than $1,000 a year. This offers us the best window into how to restore the vitality that was once the right of every child. There are many areas in the world, and there are 5 that are specifically identified as blue zones that people live in like this. Their annual income is less than $1,000 per capita, and they don't have doctors. And many people have studied this. What is the secret of healthy, long life? Is it to move naturally, or to have the right outlook and know your purpose and downshift? Is it to eat wisely with a plant slant, 80%, wine at 5? Is it to belong to your family, your tribe? Is it all lifestyle? Or are there other factors that allow these people to live into their 80s and 90s and climb mountains and celebrate and live joyously into their hundreds? What about their water, their soil, their pristine air, sun exposure, and the joyful celebration of life? What about the connections and the purpose? What else is involved? So I want to briefly go through some of these points because these become important. In these areas, one finds that the soil and the colloidal minerals are generally vortex down through the mountain, collect all the minerals. They end up in suspension as colloids, and they collect probiotics, and this water ends up being structured. So this is extremely different from some of the things that we are exposed to and the soil that we are exposed to. Many of you have heard about structured water, and what it really refers to is the fact that the water structure is determined by the angles of the molecules between the hydrogen and the oxygen. And it turns out that this water structure is what dictates the function. Properly structured water functions for optimal health, and improperly structured water does not function to give you optimal health. It becomes really astounding and clear how important this is when you realize that the majority of the human body is water. So of course, when you look up studies even from the 1800s, what you find is that many studies show that in randomized trials, that just by getting enough mineralized water into the body, that you can cure many advanced diseases within a short period of time. What about the connection to the earth? When you walk with naked feet, how can you ever forget the earth? Well, it turns out that the electromagnetic beat of the earth happens to be the exact same beat as the beat in the heart and the beat in the brain. As humans, we are born onto this earth with our electromagnetic field being exactly equal to that of the Earth. So we require it to live. When we sent astronauts into space without a Schumann wave generator around the rocket, the astronauts' health deteriorated extremely fast. So this is really important. We're not beings that just need air, water, and food, but we also are dependent upon the electromagnetic beat of the earth, which structures our water. Without this particular frequency, human health declines. What about sun exposure? And let me mention that people in the long living cultures connect to nature and connect to earth much more than we do. We are very much in a situation where we are suffering from the disease of human civilization. What about sun exposure? When's the last time you got into that sun? It turns out that sunlight induces clathrate structure in the water. And clathrate-like ordering is actually responsible for holding a charge separation and holding energy. So structured water holds more energy than unstructured water, and structured water is created through our exposure to the sun. So we very much are like plants. We can actually live on the sun. I like to think of the human body as a battery. And what science shows is that about a third of this battery's energy can be provided from food, but the other 2/3 are provided from the sun and from the connections to the earth. This is something which we have lost as we stay in buildings and work with shoes. What about the supportive extended family structure and connections? So in many parts of the world, the tribe, the family, the extended family sticks together. These tribal units benefit from the wisdom and the knowledge of the elders that's passed down to the youngers and the youngers and the youngers. This is an important social structure with important connections that have a powerful impact on our health. And last but not least would be the joy and the purpose, which is present at every stage of life, every stage, every age. Watering, cooking, competing, living. You don't see people at the age of 60 retiring. They have a job. They will impart their wisdom to the children. They will help solve problems with their wisdom. They will continue to be active and fish and climb. The joy is so critical because this vibration actually structures the water which sits around the cells and programs the DNA and controls the DNA. This is what we call the ultimate epigenetics. So if you're looking to correct your DNA through epigenetics, the most important thing you can do is have enough colloidal mineral structured water in and hold a vibration of joy which structures the water. And some of this was actually shown by Dr. Masuro Emoto, who took pictures of water crystals under electron microscopes with different kinds of thoughts, and was able to show that structured water before prayer and after prayer, the water structure is extremely different. So think about every thought we hold in joy and how it would program every molecule of water in the body versus a emotion of low vibration or depression or sadness, frustration, or anger that would structure the water completely differently. So when we look at long living cultures where people thrive at all ages, we see in these blue zones a connection to structured water, sun, soil, earth, joy, oxygen. This is what we call back to the ancient future. Our modern lifestyle accelerates aging and chronic diseases. I consider it somehow to be like a human cage where we're stuck to the cars and the roads and the houses and the electronics. We are really learning more and more about this as time goes on. And in fact, there were great doctors who documented the degeneration that we have experienced over 3 generations, and the fact that it probably will take us 3 generations of correcting these things that we talked about, the water, the soil, the earth, the joy, in order for us to go back to recovering. In fact, Pottinger did a study where they actually showed that cats that went from one area of living very well to went down the mountain and lived in under different connections, different soil, different sun. It literally took 3 generations to get them back. So how can we accelerate this regeneration in one lifetime that we've got right now? And that happens to be by optimizing the 5 areas we talked about, because this is what we have used in the institution to accelerate that regeneration, and especially with exercise-induced oxygenation and some of the other mechanisms we're using, we're seeing results very quickly. And usually in children, we see these results within 3 to 6 months. In adults, we see these results within 3 months to 1 year or 2 years, depending upon how advanced their conditions are. Our institute has seen a rise of children, as I was mentioning, and I wanted to talk about 3 cases that we have treated that will illustrate this model of the 5-point model. So Parvati was a 15-year-old with debilitating dysmenorrhea. She was missing school 2 days of every month. This is a very, very common story. These cases are usually seen by gynecologists who will often put the person on an oral contraceptive tablet and maybe miss the fact that there are other symptoms that indicate a larger, more systemic imbalance, like sleeping 2 to 3 hours at a time, so not being able to sleep the whole night, like depression and low mood, like fatigue, and frequent napping. This is a very common scenario. I treated this patient over 5 years ago, but this scenario happens to be a common one right now. On evaluation, we found a suboptimal thyroid with a free T3 at 2.3. The range is 2.3 to 6.8, so she's clearly not in the 75th percentile. And suboptimal thyroid number also goes with function, because it turns out that the cell phones and the radiation from the cell phones happens to knock thyroid function out. A suboptimal day 21 progesterone level of 0, optimal is at least 10, and a stressful family situation with a dad having brain cancer. So this patient has an adrenal deficiency, which is being filled by the progesterone converting into the cortisol pathway. This is a very common scenario. We're seeing this in many young children. And the answer is not just to give progesterone. We have to teach them how to deal with the chronic stress response that's creating the depletion. So week 1 in this patient, she was given progesterone of 12.5 milligrams, slow release, and told to keep increasing it until she slept through the night. Very, very important to break that sleep cycle issue. She was also given specific core nutrients, which are essential vitamins and minerals, and magnesium. These are 2 that she was started with. Omega would be added later, but magnesium, as you know, calms the nervous system and stops the drainage of the fuel tank. She was asked to start upping her fluids to 100 ounces of water with pink salt and lemon, and to give an affirmation and wish to before drinking the water, so she could structure the water, and we know that that works. And to address the chronic stress response, we used a mechanism called heart math, and then asked her to simplify life. Take everything that's in circle 1 in the center, which is you, and then eliminate circle 2 and circle 3, all of the distractions and elements that you're associated with it that are not related to circle 1. And we usually ask people to do this for at least 90 days. And then oxygenation, oxygenation, oxygenation. The biggest body stress is low oxygen to the microcirculation. So optimizing each of these areas slightly, just in week 1, is how we started. The most important step is to control the chronic stress response, because the chronic stress response is what causes the depletion of the hormones like progesterone and the depletion of the nutrients like B vitamins and magnesium. This chronic stress response is associated with a chronic beta wave in the brain, which is the active one that you see up top. But it is best addressed through heart rate variability, which is based on emotions, simply because it turns out that heart rate variability is controllable within 30 seconds to 5 minutes, whereas meditation mechanisms that actually work directly with mental type of exercises can take up to 60 minutes to produce the pattern. So we use heart rate variability and heart math equipment to help the patient to address this. We know that heart rate variability on the top, which is associated with incoherence, frustration, anxiety, worry, and irritation, impairs performance, whereas the heart rate variability in the lower pattern, which is smooth, promotes optimal performance and is associated with positive emotions, appreciation, love, and care. And this pattern is associated with the best immune system, the best communications, and the least draining of the fuel tank. The technique that we teach is one of quick coherence, and we call it quick because you can actually shift from the first pattern to the second pattern, where the blood flow to the brain is so much higher, in 3 minutes. And the exercise involves basically breathing in and out of your heart and creating a moment of virtual reality and virtual joy. So I'm going to lead you through this exercise. I want you to close your eyes for a moment and start to breathe deeply, allowing the oxygen to flow into your toes, your calves, your knees, in and out. Imagine all your organs being fed by oxygen, your intestinal organs, your heart, your brain. Your brain is receiving oxygen out through your arms, your fingers. And in this state, I want you now to breathe directly in and out of your heart, slow deep breaths, and imagine yourself doing something or experience something that gives you great joy, like mine is being at the beach. What does it smell like? What does it look like? What are the colors in the air? What are the sounds in the air? What is the taste in your mouth? What is the feeling on your skin? The virtual reality, creating the space where you are experiencing the joy. Stay there for a moment. Breathe in and out. Stay there. For most people, you can open your eyes. This simple exercise would change within 30 seconds to 3 minutes the blood flow to the brain and your entire response and structure of water in the body. So this is the crux and the beginning of our program. The second one is progesterone, and it is the calming hormone. We started with a low dose, like 12.5 milligrams, which was slow release. And that's very important because the slow release lasts through the night, so it's compounded. We used it every night throughout the cycle to support the entire cycle all the way through, and then asked them to titrate upwards every 1 to 3 days until sleep is continuous for 8 hours. So she went from 12.5 to 25 to 37.5. Sometimes these patients may need to increase the dose around the period to control symptoms. Once the chronic stress response and nutrition and the rest of the 5-point model are corrected, they are usually weaned off of the progesterone and don't really need it anymore because now the body is able to produce progesterone and isn't stealing it to support other pathways. The supplements we use are extremely standard. In their core, we generally use a multivitamin mineral, a fish oil, which calms the nervous system. The multivitamin mineral is specifically for adrenal and thyroid activity. Magnesium of the brain variety that controls the nervous system, and vitamin D, which activates all hormones if it's below 50. And when we're looking for a multivitamin, we make sure that it's a vegetable capsule with no dye, no preservative, no magnesium stearate, no GMO, wheat, gluten, corn, starch, or yeast, active forms of everything that's needed for the thyroid adrenal axis, including the B vitamins, and antioxidant doses. And specifically, you do want to look for things that will activate the thyroid adrenal because this is exactly what we're seeing across the board is a deficiency. Omega-3 becomes critical to this, and enteric coating is doubly absorbed. Why is omega-3 so critical? Because not only does it lower the inflammation that's caused by stress, but it also reduces the nervous system activity and anxiety by up to 40%. There are plenty of studies showing that omega-3 alone lowers anxiety and depression by 30 to 40%. So this is important. And this is the New England Journal of Medicine article that showed that enteric-coated fish oil was absorbed at a higher rate. What about magnesium? We know that magnesium deficiency induces anxiety because it causes more nervous system activity. And you can see in this GABA receptor neuron pathway, all the little red ones are magnesium. So you can imagine how much magnesium is needed. And magnesium, therefore, blocks nerve excitation because it binds to the NMDA receptors and blocks the activation of the nervous system. It just turns out that magnesium is one of the nutrients, and I can't say this of many nutrients, that single-handedly I have used to correct anxiety or to correct essential tremor, to correct restless leg syndrome, insomnia, headaches. It's unbelievable. Palpitations and arrhythmias, muscle pain. So magnesium alone is able to correct this, and especially if we use a magnesium that has ATA, which is the nervous system type of magnesium, acetyltaurinate. To realize 95% of supplements are contaminated. So that is why we look for the vegetable capsule with no dye, no fillers, no preservatives, glass bottles, no heat seal. By week 4, this patient on progesterone 25 milligrams, magnesium ATA 450 milligrams, omega-3 4 grams, heart math twice a day, the dysmenorrhea has improved by 50%. She's sleeping 8 hours, except during the periods. So she probably needs a little more progesterone around the periods. Her depression is better, and her fatigue and frequent napping are better. So some progress has been made. By week 12, we have increased the progesterone to 50 milligrams during the cycle. We have added the omega-3. We continued with the detoxification. She has mastered heart math and simplified her life down to circle number 1. And she's exercising lightly. How is she feeling on this regimen? Her dysmenorrhea is gone. She's sleeping 8 hours all through the month. Her depression is better, and her fatigue is resolved. Realize I did not say that the depression is gone. And this is where either after enough thyroid support from the essential multivitamin and mineral, she'll get better, or this may be somebody that you're going to end up actually using thyroid in. Recall that she actually had a low thyroid. So if I started a young person like this on thyroid, again, it's something that usually comes back after a while. And also to remember that depression is generally caused by one of the causes is the gut bacteria being off. So sometimes just adding a proper probiotic to this would correct it completely. And I've seen this in hundreds of clients. This is our second case. Josh, he was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis at age 10. His mother wanted a medication-free approach. Now, you know, again, usually the patients come in with one thing, but there's multiple things going on, right? So other things that were going on were fatigue. Of course, he's not absorbing anything. The lack of focus and ADD and the beginnings of some joint pain, which definitely is not a good thing. The evaluation revealed a very overbearing father and major family stressors, a low thyroid, an inflammatory gut mucosa by a Genova Diagnostics test that was done, gastric test, and low nutritional levels on a SpectraCell functional nutritional test. Using the 5-point model and realizing that 70% of the nervous system lies in the gut. So anxiety translates to inflammation on the gut lining. So having a lot of stress in your life is a great way to have a gut that doesn't work. We talked about heart rate variability. Since 70% of this translates to the gut, it has a very profound effect on the gut if you're in the red pattern and depleting all your nutrients and making inflammation on the gut lining versus the lower pathway. The nutrition program that was used in JOSH was based around 3 elements. One is to measure, the second is food-based, and the third is the 3 supplements that we talked about before that were core supplements. This gentleman's SpectraCell showed a gut pattern with low glutamine and low B vitamins, and he was immediately placed on an anti-inflammatory gut program. So you could give him as much nutrition as you wanted, and it wouldn't work because it wouldn't be absorbed. He was taken off of dairy, and eventually we suggested meat, fish, and eggs, but he was a pretty resistant kid, so you always want to make sure that you do something that they can be compliant with. A broad spectrum probiotic with every meal, and I usually prefer food forms like probiotic coconut milk yogurt. A broad spectrum enzyme with every meal, and glutamine, 2 to 4 grams per meal, and aloe, half a cup in the morning and half a cup in the evening. Realize this is a 90-day, 12-week program. After this program, we usually reduce these doses, especially the glutamine and the aloe. This protocol has been used in over 1,000 people with 80% results, and a good 10% of them have been children. The enzymes that I like to use include enzymes that have all of these components: proteases, lipases, cellulase, pectinase. And the probiotic should have a varied forms that recolonize both the upper and the lower bowel. So this child on evaluation has a low thyroid, which means he has low immunity. How do we correct a low thyroid? In an 11-year-old boy, we corrected it by correction of chronic stress response with heart-focused meditation, correction of the nutrition, correction of the pH, and removal of the electromagnetic radiation by using shields that protect from 5G electronics. Sometimes we actually have to use actual thyroid medication. We know that ulcerative colitis is a combination of a fuel tank that's low, detoxification that is not working, and mind and body stressors that combine to give ulcerative colitis. The result in this patient at age 12, 2 years later, he was symptom-free and discontinued all ultra medications, and his SpectraCell was corrected. He relapsed on entering college at age 18 and letting go of the diet 100%. Josh is now in college at age 21, and he's off medications completely. He visited the office last week to tweak his nutritional regimen. So empowerment and learning, he continues to use his heart math, do the nutrition. He's not on any hormones. He uses daily detoxification with water and salt and lemon and probiotics. So this is a truly, truly amazing kid that we treated. And this is 14-year-old Bailey with allergies to everything, ADD and anxiety. Her LCAT revealed allergies to most foods. She had come in from an allergy treatment doctor, and she had been having regular injections and allergy treatments. She would break into hives on touching metal rails. And an evaluation revealed major family dysfunction and stressors, and a low thyroid and low nutrition. So where do we get started? She also had the excessive use of electronics and cell phone. And to remember that allergy and anxiety have the same root causes that we talked about. It's always going to be a gut issue, which is driven by the nervous system having a heart rate variability that is off. We started the anti-inflammatory gut program. In her case, she chose plant-based, and in fact, her whole family went plant-based for the 90 days. She was started on the broad spectrum probiotic we talked about, a broad spectrum enzyme with every meal, the glutamine, 2 to 4 grams per meal, the aloe, half a cup in the morning and the evening. Very simple. And she was taught to control her heart rate variability because it transmits directly to the gut. So when we have an anxiety or a worry or an irritation, we're messing our gut up. And when we have appreciation, love, and care, the opposite. It's interesting, 90% of fibers in the visceral nervous vagus carry information from the gut to the brain, not the other way around. So when we talk about a gut-brain connection, it's so critical. In fact, 70% of the serotonin in the body is made in the gut. So depression often really starts in the gut. The basic food recommendation that we make for this patient in nutritionally is to eat real food, eat more plant, eat organic or local, add superfoods and regenerative embryonic foods like blue-green algae and bee pollen and sprouted foods, anything that has a seed in it. At age 27, where she is now, she's allergy-free on a dairy-free healthy eating and components of the program that she chooses to keep. So utilizing the correction of the fuel tank, the detoxification method with water pH and seasonal cleanses and probiotics, the correction of mind stress by downshifting and real joy and virtual joy through heart math, and oxygenation, which we're able to correct and regenerate the body. And I highlight the sun, the earth, the soil, the water, the joy, and the oxygen, because that is where the long living have actually regenerated. And it's important for us to realize that that's where we have to head. Now, in all of these cases, we have to figure out how to help the parents, right? And in order to help the parents, one of the things they have to understand is what's wrong. So besides talking about the 5-point model, we also talk about what they can do, because currently children are deprived of fundamental things like emotionally available parents, like clearly defined limits and guidance, responsibilities, balanced nutrition and adequate sleep, movement and outdoors, creative play, social interaction, and unstructured time, and opportunities to just be bored and get creative. So these are things that we have reduced with our modern civilization. Instead, children are being served with digitally distracted parents, indulgent parents, a sense of entitlement rather than responsibility, inadequate sleep and nutrition, sedentary indoor lifestyle, and an endless stimulation with technological babysitters, instant gratification, and the absence of dull, boring moments. So the advice we give parents to help fix this is very simple. Go back to the basics. Set limits and remember that you're not the child's parent. You are the child's parent, rather, not a friend. We need to offer the children what they need, not they want. We have to be able to say no. Providing nutritious food and spending time outdoors, having a technology-free family dinner. When's the last time anybody have that? Giving children chores, folding laundry, tidying up toys, hanging clothes, washing dishes, and consistent sleep routines, because these are how we teach responsibility. So teaching responsibility, like not packing their backpack, let them carry their own backpack, let them pack it, let them peel their own banana. Don't bring lunch to school if they forgot their box. There are consequences, and children learn these early. Teaching delayed gratification and providing opportunities for boredom, because boredom is the time when creativity awakens. We don't need to be responsible for entertaining our children. being emotionally available to connect with children and teaching them self-regulation and social skills like turning off the phones until the kids are in bed, teaching them heart math, teaching them to greet and turn taking and sharing and empathy and table manners and conversation skills. We must make changes in our children's lives before the entire generation of children will be medicated. And we try to have these things that the parents do and empower the children themselves to learn how to get in the sun, enjoy the earth, eat more plants, drink more water, eat fermented foods and probiotics, have downtime, breathe oxygen. And this is how we regenerate. I really want to thank you for your great attention. And if you have any questions, please address them to spatty@sajun.com. Thank you so much.